Well, the aim of the project was to design a postage stamp that promoted cultural diversity. So I wanted to do something that wasn't cliche, so I first thought of food and then how to visually communicate that in a good way. So I did spices in the shape of the U.S.
I thought it would be interesting to address scale issues and government issues in a project. So we tried to explore the idea of cultural diversity, and the students had to spend a lot of time researching, really analyzing what that meant to begin with, and then finding some aspect of cultural diversity that they could depict on a stamp which would promote tolerance and understanding. And so the one thing that we all share culturally is food. So regardless what your ethnicity is and what your background is, everybody sits around a table, they all have their family traditions and customs, and she thought that was a nice unifying way to show diversity.
The stamp was actually personal to me because I was adopted, so my entire family, my parents are Irish, and then my brother's Vietnamese, and I have Korean brother and sisters.
It was very important for me to have these students participate in something that supports research, that helped them to understand. There were so many wonderful presentations that day, not just graphic design, but in all areas, and seeing what all the students do and realizing that as artists, we are doing the same creative process. So I think that it was very rewarding for me as a professor to see my students do good research and come out with really terrific solutions, but most importantly, that they understood the importance of research in their graphic problem solving.
She always says before we do anything, don't go to the computer, don't draw anything, just research. So in my sketchbook, I have a couple pages of the research I did. We had to post it up for a research day, and then from there you do thumbnails, and I went through a whole series of designs and everything, and then from there, even then, I was like, okay, this is it. And she would come over to my computer. She'd be like, you know what? Well, that 45 is too small. You won't be able to see that in the stamp.
So she had to do all her research, and one of the things that we tried to exhibit at the conference was her timeline of study and research, and then all the renovations and redos until she came to her final outcome. I think it was great because they got to explain their creative process, but people got to ask. And many times in the real world, when you look at something, you will never meet the designer, you will never know the thought behind the idea. But at the undergraduate research conference, people could say, Beth, oh my God, the map is made of spices. How'd you come up with that? And then she has this rich history of her personal history of her family and adoption, and whether she chooses to share that or not, but she can still say how she came up with her idea, and the fact it wasn't all computer generated, that she actually made something, put it together, and then of course did the digital component. So it's a beautiful compilation of hand skills and technology, and then, like I said, all presented in a conference where not only could people look at her work, but they could understand what was behind her work.
I've never been in something like that before, and it was really interesting. I spoke to a few of the judges, and just sharing my idea was nice to hear that they appreciate, the entire process, not just the final project, because the real thought is everything that goes behind it, and from the very start, from the first thought and your first design to the finished thing. So that's the real thing that matters, is the development, that you don't just stick with the first idea.
And I think it was really important for all the students that participated, as Beth said, that they got to become, they had a chance to become articulate in talking about their own design process and speaking to the judges, which was not their comfort zone, but learning to really address their critical thinking and their creative process. And I think all of them really enjoyed the day thoroughly. It was a really wonderfully well-rounding experience.